Binge the full week of The Ray Taylor Show ad-free over at patreon.com/inspired disorder.
What you manifest in your mind, you can bring to reality.
This is my top 5 Stephen King horror films. These are movies that were adapted by Stephen King writing of some sort, and is a filmography, a collection of films of which I hadn't seen a lot of. So it was nice to go through all of these movies and really fill in a lot of the blind spots. Because I've seen some Stephen King stuff like Stand By Me I saw recently, but, Shawshank Redemption, The Green Mile, like a lot of the things that are non-horror of his, I've seen. Of course, like, I'd seen Misery is probably one of the classics I've seen of his. As far as horror movies, I've actually seen some of them. Some of them more recently. Some of them I had a turnaround with. There's movies of his that I've seen that I just do not like. But there are some bad movies that have been made of his work. And surprisingly, some movies that I do not like of his are now on the list because they're better. They're better. So let's find out. Let's find out what my top 5 are, shall we? Starting off, the movie that I had never seen before. It's a movie that I constantly would confuse with another movie that's kind of similar. It's a horror movie with cars. But it wasn't this movie. I had never seen this movie until I had watched it for this. And that movie coming in at number 5 is Christine. This is a movie that came out in 1983, same year as Sleepaway Camp, which I reviewed yesterday. And it's about a boy and his car. A haunted car. I love the premise. Haunted houses are a thing. Haunted, people, possessions are a thing in horror. But a haunted car, and the car is great, especially for kids. Like, it takes place in, I don't know what year. It's supposed to be, the 50s or something like that. I don't know. I don't think it's taking place in the 80s. Maybe it is. I don't know. But the car is older. And it's this car that, people just keep dying in. Due to, it's weird. It's like this car that keeps, everybody that's owned it has died. But this kid sees it's beat up in some old guy's junkyard. And he wants to get it. And he's like a nerdy kid. And he gets this car and he wants to fix it up. And he gets really into fixing it up. He falls in love with this car. There's a lot of it is this love that he has for his car. And cars for kids represent freedom. You're free to get out of your house. You're free to leave your parents. Right? Because they can't hold things over you if you're out of the house. If you're in the house, you're under my roof, you listen to my rules. You're in a car, it's my car. I bought this car. I own this car. I've fixed this car up. It's also like Stephen King, amazing at writing bullying. The bullying that happens in his movies is next level bullying. There is serious damage and life-threatening things that happen from bullies. And the bullies in Christine are no different. What they do to his car is ridiculous. But it's also got that thing that I love about horror movies. It's that revenge superhero type movie. Where it's they pay for what they've done. And it's he loses control. The power is, it's not going to end well for him. But it's great. I loved it. I really did. I'd never seen it before, and I really enjoyed the movie. I like the characters. The bullying stuff is great. It's perfect Stephen King. If I had to imagine, I've never read any of his books. I've only recently saw a ton of his movies for this. And bullying is he does bullying more than anybody, better than anybody. He does kids really good, friend groups and kids, whether they're multiple friends in the friend group or in Christine, where it's just 2 guys. That was kind of my life growing up. It was just me and one of my friends. I had friends at school, but they didn't live near me. So I only had one friend that lived near me, and that was kind of the friend growing up. And this movie's about that. And it's about how like early relationships, not even just, with cars, but just relationships in general, how a lot of the times relationships can pull friendships apart. And this does that. This has a lot of cool things. I don't know. I really enjoyed it. And, a haunted car, this is a fun premise. And I really enjoyed the movie. So yeah, that's my number 5. Which is kind of sad that that's my number 5 and I like it so much, because my number 4 movie is a movie that I openly do not like. I'm not a fan of the director. I mean, I've tried to watch this movie multiple times. I mean, I don't not say I don't like this director. This director sometimes makes things that I'm not a fan of. But amazingly visual director. So anyway, coming in at number 4 is the movie that came out only 3 years before Carrie did this movie, The Shining. Here's Johnny. The Shining came out in 1980. 3 years before. Probably one of, if not the best filmed Stephen King adapted work. And I know it doesn't hold true. It's not a good adaptation. People that like the book, even Stephen King hates this adaptation because it changed a lot. I've never read the book, so I don't know. But it is beautifully shot. Beautifully shot. Stanley Kubrick, beautifully shot. Directing. My problem with it is it's a little confusing. It's a little long, a little slow at parts, but it's like a haunted house. I mean, it's a hotel. It's a descent into madness with Jack Nicholson. But there's aspects of it that are confusing, which I don't know. It's just not I just don't enjoy. There's like, aside from visually, the visuals of this movie, which are amazing, the horrific moments that happen as a horror film are amazing. Iconic. There's like so little to like enjoy about watching it. Like I just can't get into it. I've tried so many times and I rewatched it again because I was seeing so many bad movies that were adapted from Stephen King that I'm like, well, now I got to rewatch The Shining because it's visually better quality than majority of these movies. Great performance by Jack Nicholson. Great performance by, Shelley Duvall. The kid is creepy. It's a crazy movie. And I never saw Dr. Sleep, so that's not on the list. It wasn't out. It wasn't available. And I wasn't going to buy it just because I'm not a fan of The Shining. I know it's kind of like a sequel to The Shining in some ways. But yeah, coming in at number 4, not like I will probably watch Christine again before I watch The Shining again, unless I do a Stanley Kubrick draft, a top 5 of Stanley Kubrick, which I'll probably do. And I might rewatch it again, but there's guaranteed better Stanley Kubrick stuff. But not all of his stuff is good. Some of his stuff is just like not good at all, in my opinion. But it's kind of hit or miss on some things. Shining, gorgeous, a little confusing, but it's terrifying at moments. It does its job as a horror film. Coming in at number 4, The Shining, and I had to put it on the list because I felt bad, even though it's like not a movie I really like, even though I've watched it up. As far as movies that I don't like, I've rewatched The Shining far too many times. There's aspects of it that I do like, and maybe one of these days, maybe there'll be a movie that I watch of Stanley Kubrick or when I watch his movies in succession of one another, and binge them and kind of really get his vibe, then I'll have more of an appreciation for it. I don't know. It's sitting at number 4, which it's lucky to even be on my list. At the beginning, it wasn't even on the list, but it's on the list now at number 4. Moving on to number 3, my number 3 favorite. This is another movie that I liked. I liked the beginning of it, and then like it fell off when I initially watched it. This was the last movie that was reviewed on my old podcast, the Inspired Disorder podcast. A little over 4 years ago, I started The Many Faces. It's an ongoing series of abstract ink portraits. Each piece is improvised. Each piece is released daily. Start collecting now. Head on over to inspireddisorder.com/TMF. That stands for The Many Faces. And save yourself 25% when you use coupon code RTS. That stands for The Ray Taylor Show, because that's what you're listening to, and I love you. So I want you to save 25% when you use that coupon code. Head on over to inspireddisorder.com/TMF and use coupon code RTS to save 25% when you start collecting one of over 1,600 original ink paintings. By myself, I made them. Support me. I love you. Back to the show. So coming in at number 3 is the movie It. Chapter 1. Don't really like Chapter 2. Chapter 1's amazing. And rewatching it, I liked it. I liked it top to bottom. The problems that I felt like it fell off in the first viewing of it don't bother me as much, and maybe it's because I've watched so many horror films. Maybe it's because I've seen so many bad Stephen King films that, like, okay, like I got used to, like, just letting things go. But the kids in it are amazing. I love the actors. The casting is amazing. Their characters, like Stephen King knows how to write kids. Like, you want it like Stand By Me. It's like Stand By Me level, except for like wittier, snappier dialogue. Great acting. It has like serious, I mean, obviously it has the kid from Stranger Things, but it has Stranger Things vibes. Big time. But different. Kids are amazing. The scares are great. Like, kind of, it's similar in some ways to Freddy Krueger, where, you know, Freddy haunts kids in their dreams by giving them nightmares, the things that they hate most. Pennywise kind of manifests those worst nightmares in hallucinations. So a lot of the times these kids, which, you know, A Nightmare on Elm Street at times got to that similar level, kind of did the same thing. But this one, love the kids, love the writing. I thought it was scary, like definitely freaky. The clown is freaky, and I'm glad I rewatched. This is another one where I was like, oh, this wasn't going to be on my list, because for whatever reason I didn't like the last half where they're in the sewers and the kids are floating. It's like, why are the kids floating? It's like, I don't know. Now I just didn't care. It's like, whatever, floating in water. This water in sewers, maybe, I don't know. Doesn't really matter. But it's cool. The teamwork, the different characters, the kids. It does this bullying that happens. Like the fat kid. I relate to the fat kid falling in love with the girl. I would have been that fat kid in love with that girl. Those were like the girls I was into at that age were like the tomboy girls. Still to this day tend to be. I'm not really as attracted to like the kind of high maintenance, quote unquote, high maintenance type of women. But yeah, I would have been that fat kid. That would have 100% been me. And the kid's name is Jeremy Ray Taylor. What's that about? But yeah, I love the kids. The story's great. The monster, the quality of the film, like every aspect of it. I had so much fun rewatching it. I'm so glad I rewatched it, because it's like so good. Obviously, it's only my number 3, but similarly to like The Shining, it's well filmed. It's one of the best filmed movies. It's well produced, high quality film. Except for I'm in it. Like, I love the kids, the shit talking between them, the bullying, the bullies are like scary bullies. But then the monster's even scarier. There's the creepy pedophile pharmacist, the dad of the girl, super, like, the scary things this movie does that they're like legitimate things that kids would be scared of and should be scared of in real life, and it portrays them so good, like in like honestly horrific. They're not good people, and it's crazy. It's crazy. But yeah, I really enjoyed it. Chapter 1, chapter 2, when the end of chapter 2 is basically people being bullies. Like they bully, I think they just insult it until it dies by bullying it, which I don't really like that. Like you don't win by being the bully. Although I do like revenge. So there's a line, I guess. But it one I love because it's all about the kids. All about the kids. I loved it so much. So much fun. So much fun. So yeah, number 3 is It. And not the miniseries. Doesn't count. It's not a movie. And I haven't seen it. But I'll rewatch it. Coming in at number 2, my second favorite Stephen King horror film is one that I've mentioned already. It has some of the great stuff as far as bullying is concerned. I mentioned it in my review of Sleepaway Camp, which is related because they're both, female leads. So coming in at number 2 is the film Carrie, the classic horror film Carrie from 1976. Starring Sissy Spacek, directed by Brian De Palma. Great. You got this kid who's like has a overprotective, ultra-religious mom. Doesn't really allow her to do anything. She gets bullied by everybody. She gets her period. She doesn't know what her period is. Freaking out. This very like sexualized shower scene at the beginning of the movie. But you see the bullying. But you also, like, it fleshes out, like, even the bullies have character to them. They're not just, like, bullies. Like, they all have, like, their own, within the bully universe of these movies, like, they all have their own kind of a thing. And you're seeing these girls, these bullies, get punished for what they did to Carrie, throwing tampons at her because she didn't know what a period was because her mom never taught her because she's super ultra-religious. But then you also see like these weird things happening, which is another aspect of Stephen King where you have like supernatural stuff that happens. And it's not just in horror movies. There's the supernatural stuff that happens in The Green Mile, which is, I remember when I watched that, I was like, whoa, what is this movie doing? Why are there like these flies coming out of that man's mouth? But yeah, Carrie. Early John Travolta, which is weird. Forgot he was in it. This is one of those movies where I probably watched when I was young and then, hadn't watched it in forever. And it's like, yeah, I watched Carrie. Like culturally, you know that like the pig's blood and the kind of the things. I don't think I ever watched the remake, and I don't really feel a need to because this one was so well done. And it's, these mean girls plan for Carrie to win prom and then to humiliate her in front of everybody. But what they don't know is that she has these telekinetic powers. She finds this like hidden superpower to seek revenge on everybody that's hurt her. Right? Another one of those great Stephen King or just a lot of horror movies where the victims find this hidden power to seek revenge against all the people. And of course it's horrific and maybe gives people the wrong idea now, I guess. I don't know. People feel entitled. People will feel that rage like they're being bullied when they're not really being bullied. Like they don't understand what bullying is. Like maybe they are the bully and they're being called out for being the bully and they think that's what it's like to be bullied, which is not. Bullying is like compounded trauma from multiple people on a regular basis. At least my experience with it. But yeah, Carrie, my number 2. It's classic. It's amazing. It's great. It's got everything. Top, well made, great acting, solid story, pretty simple story, you know. So yeah, Carrie coming in at number 2. And my number 1, my favorite Stephen King horror film, which sadly is out of this list, the only one I did not get to revisit. Wasn't available to stream. I'm sure I could have rented it for sure, or just bought it, but I didn't. I bought some other multi-pack of Stephen King horror films, which none of them are on the list. Maybe Chris, or maybe The Shine, or maybe Carrie, I think was on that, like of 8 movies of Stephen King adaptations, and I did not play. I've watched most of them, did not play. None of them are on the list. Would have loved Misery to be in that bundle. Oh, spoilers. My number 1 favorite Stephen King horror film is Misery. I mean, the moment I planned on, directed by Rob Reiner, starring James Caan, Kathy Bates, simple movie. I love it though. It's terrifying because it's like, it's not supernatural in any way. You have James Caan is an author, you know, kind of playing a Stephen King type. And Kathy Bates is a super fan. And James Caan's been doing a series of books. And I think he's set to release his final book, or he released his final book. And Kathy Bates is not happy with that book, and she wants him to rewrite the book. It's crazy. He's basically held hostage by Kathy Bates and being drugged and being forced to write the version of the book, the final book, or a continuation because she doesn't want it to end for her. Great performances. Brutal movie. Seeing his feet get smashed. Him trying to like crawl away while he's, you know, I mean, it's like so hopeless. Like, what is he? He can't get out. He's like, just, it's terrifying. Terrifying. And like, and I think because it's grounded in like that kind of reality, like that can happen. People do get held captive for long times. Now, usually it's like dudes capturing children or women, holding them hostage, not necessarily super fans holding their favorite artist hostage. But I believe this was a story that was personal to Stephen King because of how passionately aggressive his fans are and like how easily something like this could happen. So yeah, it's definitely my favorite. I mean, it's well shot, great. You know, it's just a few people in it. It's great. It's one of the great movies. But as far as like a Stephen King horror film, yeah. And I like because it's grounded and you don't have like supernatural stuff. For me, in horror movies, can easily just like I don't care, especially if it's like devil, like anything that requires you to believe in the Christian faith. Like if that's the only reason why I should be scared in this moment is because I'm scared of the devil, or demons or whatever. Whereas just humans can be scary. Humans are the scariest monsters on Earth. And a lot of, you have zombie movies that make that point where it's not the zombies that you have to be scared of, it's the humans. But Misery, number 1 favorite Stephen King horror film. Highly recommend checking it out. So this is my top 5 list of Stephen King horror films. Let me run through it one more time. Starting off at number 5, Christine. Number 4, The Shining. Number 3, It. Number 2, Carrie. And number 1, Misery. For a time, Children of the Corn was on my list for a little bit. Cat's Eye was one that was kind of fun to watch. Firestarter was kind of fun to watch. There was a bunch that were on my list, but then once I revisited I mean, Christine knocked some off. The Shining, I had to. Once I saw quality, it's like, I mean, just because I don't get it doesn't mean it still like has like cinematic value, I think. And maybe someday, maybe like in 10 years, I'll watch it again and be like, oh, I mean, I do relate to it a lot more, especially going through quarantine and kind of being stuck somewhere, how, that can kind of, they were in that hotel for how long? But, I don't know. Maybe if I did research and like understood it better, because it is kind of confusing also. But it was, I mean, I was like, I got to watch it again. I did love the beginning of it. And maybe the end isn't so bad. Carrie, Misery, great stuff. Let me know what your favorite, if I didn't mention one, I'm sure there's stuff that I watched that I forgot to mention. I watched a ton of movies this past week that were from Stephen King novels or whatever. But let me know what your favorite Stephen King horror movies are in the comments. Hit me up on social media at Ray Taylor. I want to know. I will check them out. But that's my top 5 list. New episodes of The Ray Taylor Show come out every single day. Subscribe on IGTV, YouTube, and everywhere else podcasts are found. Binge the full week ad-free over at patreon.com/Inspired Disorder. Buy Ray Taylor Show merch over at inspireddisorder.com and follow the show on Instagram at Ray Taylor Show. Have a wonderful day, everybody. Peace out!